What do Republicans hope the lawsuit will accomplish? House Oversight Committee member Congressman Jay Gowdy joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. How are you?
Very well. So the Speaker says that it's going to come in a couple weeks that you're going to go to federal court and essentially sue on the civil contempt that the House of Representatives has voted on. I'm curious, all the time people march contempt orders right down to the court. What's the delay? It's only about 3 blocks.
I haven't fully given up on criminal contempt, and I know that sounds naive, but the Department of Justice said they're not going to prosecute criminal contempt. It's actually not their decision. The statute directs the U.S. Attorney, Ron Machen, and until he tells us that he's not going to go forward with criminal contempt, then that flicker of light still remains unextinguished. If you look at Committee on Judiciary versus Harriet Miers and Josh Bolten, it took about 3 weeks to get the pleadings filed and then about 3 months to get a resolution, and that's the only roadmap that we have in Congress is that prior contempt action under John Conyers' Judiciary Committee several years ago. So I think 3 weeks is a reasonable amount of time, and that's what the Speaker said we would take.
I still don't get it, though. Maybe as a more aggressive lawyer than the members of Congress, those are lawyers, and you're former assistant United States attorney, but I would not see it as an either or. I would take both contempt citations, take one down to the U.S. District Court 3 blocks away and sue on it and get that going so I don't have to wait 3 weeks. The Terry family's waited now a year and a half, and it does, I mean, I guess that the only thing to wait for is if the Department of Justice decided to surrender the documents and avoid it. That would be, one reason. But I would also, and I'd push for the criminal contempt, both times putting pressure on my target. That's the way I would do it. So I don't know why maybe you guys are more genteel than I am in litigation.
Well, there's no question you're a better lawyer than any of the members of Judiciary or Oversight. I would say
I'll take that for an ad, by the way. I'll keep that one for an ad.
Sometimes when you pursue criminal charges, you are foreclosed from deposing people because they have a Fifth Amendment right not to participate. I mean, the O.J. Simpson case is a wonderful example. You can depose him civilly, but you can't in a criminal case. So pursuing both tracks, while there is some appeal to that, in theory, the reality is you want to at least believe that criminal contempt, which is more serious, is foreclosed. I would also, to your point about pursuing civil contempt,
I'd want the civil one to go forward faster. See, I don't think you're going to get the criminal. I don't think you're going to convince the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney to go after him criminally. I think the civil one is the only way you're going to get that. But if that's the route you're planning, I mean, I still don't get why wait.
Well, I was talking to OGR staff, Oversight Government Reform staff today. They are in the process. They actually don't file it. House General Counsel files it. They are working on it as we speak. They are developing legal theories because, as you know, we have to anticipate executive privilege, and then we have to conform our pleadings to try to defeat that in our initial pleadings. So I know 3 weeks when you are waiting for justice seems like an eternity. In the grand scheme of things, we've been working on this for 18 months. If the Speaker's correct and we're talking about a couple of weeks, I will lay my virtue of impatience aside, and we'll see.
All right, let me play another thing. I mean, you knew this was coming. So I would have been working on this well in advance of the actual vote. Most lawyers do. Lawyers have sort of auxiliary plans in the case. So people pretty much thought this one was coming. I mean, you do the math in the House of Representatives, and you know you're going to get the contempt. In terms of the general counsel working on it, lawyers, I mean, the lawyers can whip these things up pretty fast. It's not, I mean, you do a lot of heavy-duty research, and you can, with the Internet and access to law libraries, I really don't believe this can't be filed within 2 or 3 days of the vote. I could have filed it the next day. I've pulled all night in cases. I mean, I'm not asking I wouldn't be asking the lawyers to do it, but I mean, it's done all the time.
I am not arguing with you. I have a tendency to want to move quicker as well. I will say this in the defense of House General Counsel. There's not a lot of precedent. You have this one case that ultimately wasn't fully litigated. It was resolved. I think there's a sense that there's a little bit of uncharted territory in terms of civil contempt, and they don't want to get bounced out on a procedural matter, which would be embarrassing to the House. So if 3 weeks is what's required to get it right, as opposed to 3 days, I will give them 3 weeks. Hopefully they're watching your show tonight, and they will sense your impatience and mine as well, and perhaps we can cut that in half to about a week and a half.
Okay, great. All right, now, the Inspector General at Justice Department is working on a report. I have no clue why that's taken, 300 years as it has so far. It's been 18 months since this happened. I mean, I don't understand why that's taken so long. Do you have any indication when the Inspector General is going to finish that report for the benefit of this murdered border agent's family, because they want information?
I can't recall where I heard this. I heard it last week. It may have been from Jason Chaffetz, although it may not have been. I have heard a time frame of less than a month before the Inspector General will release his report. As you know, there was a part-time, not a part-time, but an acting Inspector General, and then she stood down, and then there was a full Inspector General, and my guess is that he went and re-interviewed some folks or wanted to make sure that his first piece of congressional work had all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But, you know, Greta, I have said on your show before, there have been continents that have shifted in less time, and it's taken the Inspector General to walk down the halls of DOJ and ask some pretty basic questions. I can tell you this, I cannot wait for the Inspector General to release his report and then come before Oversight and Judiciary and defend it, because the other piece of information that I have gleaned is that they are going to be very critical of the U.S. Attorney's Office and ATF in Arizona, which is about as shocking as a news alert that the earth is round. They're going to protect the Department of Justice, and they're going to implicate ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona, and that will be wholly unsatisfactory to many of us. And if I were the Inspector General, I would plan for a very long day on Capitol Hill when and if the stars align and the equinox is complete and he is finished with his report.
And the thing that we may never forget, we probably end every segment with every night, is that, you know, as Department of Justice is dragging its feet in producing the documents or resolving it, assuming executive privilege doesn't apply to all the documents, maybe it doesn't, is that there was a border agent murdered, and his family, I think, reasonably expects more from all of us to get that information. Anyway, Congressman, thank you.
Are always the big losers. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, and you were U.S. Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney, so you've been through that one. Thank you, sir.